Christopher George Latmore Wallace, May 21, 1972 to March 9, 1997, best known as the Notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls, was an American rapper. Wallace was raised in the Brooklyn borough of New York City. When he released his debut album Ready to Die in 1994, he became a central figure in the East Coast hip-hop scene, and increased New York's visibility in the genre at a time when West Coast hip-hop was dominant in the mainstream. The following year, Wallace led his childhood friends to chart success through his protégé group, Junior M.A.F.I.A. While recording his second album, Wallace was heavily involved in the growing East Coast/West Coast hip-hop feud. On March 9, 1997, Wallace was killed by an unknown assailant in a drive-by shooting in Los Angeles. His double-disc set Life After Death, released 16 days later, rose to number 1 on the U.S. album charts, and was certified diamond in 2000, one of the few hip-hop albums to receive this certification. Wallace was noted for his loose, easy flow, dark semi-autobiographical lyrics and storytelling abilities. 2 more albums have been released since his death. He has certified sales of 17 million units in the United States. Life and career. 1972 to 94, early life, arrests, career beginnings and first child. Born in St. Mary's Hospital on May 21, 1972, Wallace grew up in the Clinton Hill section of Brooklyn, New York City on 226 St. James Place near the border of Bedford's Stuyvesant. He was the only child of the letter Wallace, a Jamaican preschool teacher, and Georgia Latmore, a welder and small-time Jamaican politician. His father left the family when Wallace was 2 years old, and his mother worked 2 jobs while raising him. At the Queen of All Saints Middle School, Wallace excelled in class, winning several awards as an English student. He was nicknamed Big because of his overweight size by age 10. At the age of 12, he began selling illegal drugs. His mother, often away at work, did not know of her son's drug sales until Wallace was an adult. At his request, Wallace transferred out of the Roman Catholic Bishop Loudon Memorial High School to attend the state-funded George Westinghouse Career and Technical Education High School, which future rappers Jay-Z and Busta Rhymes also attended at the time. According to his mother, Wallace was still a good student, but he developed a smart-ass attitude at the new school. At 17, Wallace dropped out of school and became further involved in crime. In 1989, he was arrested on weapons charges in Brooklyn and sentenced to 5 years probation. In 1990, he was arrested on a violation of his probation. A year later, Wallace was arrested in North Carolina for dealing crack cocaine. He spent 9 months in jail before making bail. Wallace began rapping when he was a teenager. He entertained people on the streets as well as performed with local groups, the Old Gold Brothers and the Techniques. After being released from jail, Wallace made a demo tape under the name Biggie Smalls, a reference to a character in the 1975 film Let's Do It Again. As well as his stature, he stood at 6 feet 3 inches, 1.91 meters, and weighed as much as 300 to 380 pounds. 140 to 170 kilograms, according to differing accounts. The tape was reportedly made with no serious intent of getting a recording deal, but was promoted by New York-based DJ Mr. C, who had previously worked with Big Daddy Kane, and was heard by the editor of The Source. In March 1992, Wallace was featured in The Source's unsigned hype column, dedicated to aspiring rappers, and was invited to produce a recording with other unsigned artists in a move that was reportedly uncommon at the time, not in citation given. The demo tape was heard by Uptown Records or an R&B record producer, Sean Combs, who arranged for a meeting with Wallace. He was signed to Uptown immediately, and made an appearance on label mates, Heavy D and the Boys A Bunch of Niggas from the album Blue Funk. Soon after signing his recording contract, Combs was fired from Uptown, and started a new label. Wallace followed and in mid-1992, signed to Combs' new imprint label, Bad Boy Records. On August 8, 1993, Wallace's longtime girlfriend gave birth to his first child, Diana. He continued selling drugs after the birth, to support his daughter financially. Once Combs discovered this, he forced Wallace to quit. Later in the year, Wallace gained exposure on a remix to Mary J. Blige's single Real Love, under the pseudonym The Notorious B.I.G. He recorded under this name for the remainder of his career, after finding the original moniker Biggie Smalls was already in use. Real Love peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, and was followed by a remix of Blige's What's the 411. He continued this success, to a lesser extent, on remixes with Neneh Cherry, Buddy X and reggae artist Supercat, Dolly My Baby, also featuring Combs, in 1993. In April 1993, his solo track, Party and Bullshit, appeared on the Who's the Man soundtrack. In July 1994, he appeared alongside Lines Cool J and Busta Rhymes on a remix to label mate Craig Max Flather and Yeah Ears, reaching number 9 on the Hot 100. 1994, Ready to Die and Marriage. On August 4, 1994, Wallace married R&B singer Faith Evans, after they met at a Bad Boy photo shoot. 4 days later, Wallace had his first pop chart success as a solo artist with double A-side, Juicy/Unbelievable, which reached number 27 as the lead single to his debut album. Ready to Die was released on September 13, 1994, and reached number 13 on the Billboard 200 chart, eventually being certified 4 times platinum. The album, released at a time when West Coast hip-hop was prominent in the U.S. charts, according to Rolling Stone, almost single-handedly shifted the focus back to East Coast rap. It immediately gained strong reviews, and has received much praise in retrospect. In addition to Juicy, the record produced 2 hit singles, the platinum-selling Big Poppa, which reached number 1 on the US rap chart, and One More Chance featuring Faith Evans, a loosely related remix of an album track and its best-selling single. 1995, Junior M.A.F.I.A, Conspiracy and Coastal Feud. In August 1995, Wallace's protégé group, Junior M.A.F.I.A, Junior Masters at Finding Intelligent Attitudes released their debut album Conspiracy. The group consisted of his friends from childhood, and included rappers such as Lil Kim and Lil Cease, who went on to have solo careers. The record went gold and its singles, Players Anthem and Get Money both featuring Wallace, went gold and platinum. Wallace continued to work with R&B artists, collaborating with R&B groups 112, on Only You and Total, on Can't You See, with both reaching the top 20 of the Hot 100. By the end of the year, Wallace was the top-selling male solo artist and rapper on the US pop and R&B charts. In July 1995, he appeared on the cover of The Source with the caption "The King of New York Takes Over," a reference to his Frank White alias from the 1990 film King of New York. At the Source Awards in August 1995, he was named Best New Artist, Solo, Lyricist of the Year, Live Performer of the Year, and his debut album of the year. At the Billboard Awards, he was Rap Artist of the Year. And his year of success, Wallace became involved in a rivalry between the East and West Coast hip-hop scenes with Tupac Shakur, his former associate. In an interview with Vibe in April 1995, while serving time in Clinton Correctional Facility, Shakur accused Uptown Records founder Andre Harrell, Sean Combs, and Wallace of having prior knowledge of a robbery that resulted in him being shot repeatedly and losing thousands of dollars worth of jewelry on the night of November 30, 1994. Though Wallace and his entourage were in the same Manhattan-based recording studio at the time of the shooting, they denied the accusation. Wallace said, "It just happened to be a coincidence that Shakur, was in the studio. He couldn't really say who really had something to do with it at the time. So he just kinda leaned the blame on me." In 2012, a man named Dexter Isaac, serving a life sentence for unrelated crimes, claimed that he shot Shakur that night, and that the robbery was orchestrated by James Rosemond aka Jimmy Henchman. Following release from prison, Shakur signed to Death Row Records on October 15, 1995. Bad Boy Records and Death Row, now business rivals, became involved in an intense quarrel. 1996, more arrests, Tupac Shakur's death and second child. Wallace began recording his second studio album in September 1995. The album, recorded in New York, Trinidad and Los Angeles, was interrupted during its 18 months of creation by injury, legal wranglings and the highly publicized hip-hop dispute in which he was involved. During this time, he also worked with R&B/pop singer Michael Jackson for the History album. On March 23, 1996, Wallace was arrested outside a Manhattan nightclub for chasing and threatening to kill two autograph seekers, smashing the windows of their taxicab, and then pulling one of the fans out and punching them. He pleaded guilty to second-degree harassment, and was sentenced to 100 hours of community service. In mid-1996, he was arrested at his home in Teaneck, New Jersey, for drug and weapons possession charges. In June 1996, Shaka released hit M.A.F.I.A, a diss song in which he claimed to have had sex with Wallace's wife, at the time estranged, and that Wallace copied his style and image. Wallace referred to the first claim about his wife's pregnancy on Jay-Z's Brooklyn's Finest, where he raps, "If Faith Evans, his wife at the time, had twins, she'd probably have 2 packs. Jet, 2 packs." However, Wallace did not directly respond to the record during his lifetime, stating in a 1997 radio interview that it was not his style to respond. Shaka was shot multiple times in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada, on September 7, 1996, and died 6 days later of complications from the gunshot wounds. Rumors of Wallace's involvement with Shaka's murder were reported almost immediately. A 2-part series Chuck Phillips wrote for the La Times in 2002 called Who Killed Tupac Shakur claimed that the shooting was carried out by a Compton gang, called the Southside Crips, to avenge the beating of one of its members by Shakur a few hours earlier, and that Wallace provided the gun. His family publicly denied the claim. Crime writer Kathy Scott, who wrote the book The Murder of Biggie Smalls, agreed with the family, telling the Las Vegas Review-Journal, "It's easy to point a finger at a dead guy. The dead can't sue." On October 29, 1996, Faith Evans gave birth to Wallace's son, Christopher C.J. Wallace Jr. The following month, junior M.A.F.I.A. member Lil' Kim released her debut album, Hardcore, under Wallace's direction, while the two were having a love affair. 1997, Life After Death and Car Accident. During the recording sessions for his second album, tentatively named Life After Death, Till Death Do Us Part, later shortened to Life After Death, Wallace was involved in a car accident that shattered his left leg and temporarily confined him to a wheelchair. The injury forced him to use a cane. In January 1997, Wallace was ordered to pay $41,000 in damages following an incident involving a friend of the concert promoter who claimed Wallace and his entourage beat him up following a dispute in May 1995. He faced criminal assault charges for the incident, which remains unresolved, but all robbery charges were dropped. Following the events of the previous year, Wallace spoke of a desire to focus on his peace of mind. "My mom, my son, my daughter, my family, my friends are what matters to me now." Death. March 1997 shooting. Wallace traveled to California in February 1997 to promote his upcoming second studio album and film a music video for its lead single, Hypnotize. On March 5, 1997, he gave a radio interview with the Doghouse on Card in San Francisco. In the interview he stated that he had hired security, since he feared for his safety, not just because of the ongoing East Coast-West Coast feud, but because of his role as a high-profile celebrity in general. Life After Death was scheduled for release on March 25, 1997. On March 8, 1997, he presented an award to Toni Braxton at the 11th Annual Soul Train Music Awards in Los Angeles, and was booed by some of the audience. After the ceremony, Wallace attended an after-party hosted by Vibe magazine and Q West Records at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. Other guests included Faith Evans, Aaliyah, Sean Combs, and members of the Bloods and Crips gangs. On March 9, 1997, at around 12:30 a.m., Wallace left with his entourage and 2 GMC Suburbans to return to his hotel after the fire department closed the party early because of overcrowding. Wallace traveled in the front passenger seat alongside his associates, Damian D. Rock Butler, Jr. M.A.F.I.A. member Lil Cease and driver, Gregory G. Money Young. Combs traveled in the other vehicle with 3 bodyguards. The 2 trucks were trailed by a Chevrolet Blazer carrying Bad Boy's director of security. By 12:45 a.m., the streets were crowded with people leaving the event. Wallace's truck stopped at a red light 50 yards, 46 meters, from the museum. A black Chevrolet Impala SS pulled up alongside Wallace's truck. The driver of the Impala, an African-American male dressed in a blue suit and bow tie, rolled down his window, drew a 9mm blue steel pistol, and fired at the GMC Suburban. 4 bullets hit Wallace. Wallace's entourage rushed him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where doctors performed an emergency thoracotomy, but he was pronounced dead at 1:15 a.m. His autopsy was released to the public over a decade after his death in December 2012. According to the report, 3 of the 4 shots were not fatal. The first bullet hit in his left forearm, and traveled down to his wrist. The second hit him in the back, missing all vital organs, and exited through his left shoulder, and the third hit his outer left thigh, and left through his inner thigh. The report says that the third bullet strikes the left side of the scrotum, causing a very shallow, 3/8-inch linear laceration. The fourth bullet was fatal, entering through his right hip, and striking several vital organs, before stopping in his left shoulder area. That bullet struck his colon, liver, heart and upper lobe of his left lung. Murder case. Wallace's murder remains unsolved, and there are many theories regarding the identities and motives of the murderers. Immediately after the shooting, reports surfaced linking the Shaka and Wallace murders, because of the similarities in the drive-by shootings. In 2002, Randall Sullivan released Labyrinth, a book compiling information regarding the murders of Wallace and Shaka based on evidence provided by retired LAPD detective Russell Powell. Sullivan accused Marion Suge Knight, co-founder of Death Row Records, and an alleged Bloods affiliate, of conspiring with David Mack, an LAPD officer, and alleged Death Row security employees, to kill Wallace, and make Shaka and his death appear the result of a fictitious bi-coastal rat rivalry. Sullivan believed that one of Mack's associates, Umar Muhammad, also known as Harry Billups, was the hitman based on evidence provided by an informant, and due to his close resemblance to the facial composite. Filmmaker Nick Broomfield released an investigative documentary, Biggie and Tupac, based mainly on the evidence used in the book. An article published in Rolling Stone by Sullivan in December 2005 accused the LAPD of not fully investigating links with Death Row Records, based on Powell's evidence. Sullivan claimed that Sean Combs failed to fully cooperate with the investigation, and according to Powell, encouraged Bad Boy staff to do the same. The accuracy of the article was later refuted in a letter by the assistant managing editor of the La Times accusing Sullivan of using shoddy tactics. Sullivan, in response, quoted the lead attorney of the Wallace estate calling the newspaper a co-conspirator in the cover-up. The criminal investigation was reopened in July 2006 in the hopes that new evidence might help the city defend the civil lawsuits brought by the Wallace family. In January 2011, the case was reinvigorated as a result of new information reported by Anderson Cooper's Act 360 Cold Case Show, and blogged that it was being reinvestigated by a law enforcement task force composed of the LAPD, the LA County District Attorney's Office, and the FBI. In April, the FBI released redacted documents about their investigation into the shooting, revealing that the bullets were 9mm Gecko ammunition manufactured in Germany, and rarely found in the U.S. The documents reported that LAPD officers monitoring the party Wallace was attending were also employed as security personnel for Knight, and speculated that the Genovese crime family was withholding evidence about Wallace's death. Retired LAPD detective Greg Kading, who worked on the Biggie Smalls murder case for 3 years, alleges that the rapper was shot by Wardell Faust, aka Donald Bolton, and Poochie, an associate of Suge Knight, who was later killed in July 2003, after being shot in the back, while riding his motorcycle. Kading believes Knight hired Poochie via his girlfriend this assailant to kill Biggie, to avenge the death of Tupac, whom Kading alleges was killed under the orders of Sean Combs. In December 2012, the LAPD released the autopsy conducted on Biggie, hoping it would uncover more leads. This move was criticized by the longtime lawyer of his estate, Perry Sanders Jr. Following this, the LAPD apologized to the family of Biggie for the premature release of the documents due to an administrative error. Lawsuits. Wrongful death claim. In March 2005, the relatives of Wallace filed a wrongful death claim against the city of Los Angeles based on the evidence, championed by Russell Powell. They claimed the LAPD had sufficient evidence to arrest the assailant, but failed to use it. David Mack and Imam Muhammad, aka Harry Billups, were originally named as defendants in the civil suit, but were dropped shortly before the trial began after the LAPD and FBI dismissed them as suspects. The case came for trial before a jury on June 21, 2005. Several days into the trial, the plaintiff's attorney disclosed to the court, and opposing counsel, that he had received a telephone call from someone claiming to be a LAPD officer, and provided detailed information about the existence of evidence concerning the Wallace murder. The court directed the city to conduct a thorough investigation, which uncovered previously undisclosed evidence, much of which was in the desk or cabinet of debt. Stephen Camps, the lead detective in the Wallace murder investigation. The documents centered around interviews by numerous police officers of an incarcerated informant, who had been Rafael Perez's cellmate for some extended period of time. He reported that Perez had told him about his and Mac's involvement with Death Row Records, and their activities at the Peterson Automotive Museum the night of Wallace's murder. As a result of the newly discovered evidence, the judge declared a mistrial, and awarded the Wallace family its attorney's fees. On April 16, 2007, relatives of Wallace filed a second wrongful death lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles. The suit also named two LAPD officers in the center of the investigation into the Rampart scandal, Rafael Perez and Nino Durden. According to the claim, Perez, an alleged affiliate of Death Row Records, admitted to LAPD officials that he and Mac, who was not named in the lawsuit, conspired to murder, and participated in the murder of Christopher Wallace. The Wallace family said the LAPD consciously concealed Rafael Perez's involvement in the murder of Wallace. United States District Judge Florence Mary Cooper granted summary judgment to the City of Los Angeles on December 17, 2007, finding that the Wallace family had not complied with the California law that required the family to give notice of its claim to the state within 6 months of Wallace's death. The Wallace family refiled the suit, dropping the state law claims on May 27, 2008. The city never answered the amended complaint, and with the agreement of both sides, the suit was voluntarily dismissed on April 5, 2010 without prejudice. Defamation. On January 19, 2007, Tyrus Himes, better known as Big Psych, a friend of Shaka who was implicated in the murder by television channel KTTV and XXL magazine in 2005, had a defamation lawsuit regarding the accusations thrown out of court. Posthumous career. 16 days after his death, Wallace's double-disc second album was released as planned with the shortened title of Life After Death and hit #1 on the Billboard 200 charts, after making a premature appearance at number 176 due to street date violations. The record album featured a much wider range of guests and producers than its predecessor. It gained strong reviews, and in 2000 was certified Diamond, the highest M.A.F.I.A certification awarded to a solo hip-hop album. Its lead single, Hypnotize, was the last music video recording in which Wallace would participate. His biggest chart success was with its follow-up M.O. Money M.O. Problems, featuring Sean Combs, under the rap alias Puff Daddy and Mace. Both singles reached #1 in the Hot 100, making Wallace the first artist to achieve this feat posthumously. The third single, Sky's the Limit, featuring the band 112, was noted for its use of children in the music video, directed by Spike Jonze, who he used to portray Wallace and his contemporaries, including Sean Combs, Lil' Kim, and Busta Rhymes. Wallace was named Artist of the Year, and Hypnotize Single of the Year by Spin magazine in December 1997. In mid-1997, Combs released his debut album, No Way Out, which featured Wallace on 5 songs, notably on the third single Victory. The most prominent single from the record album was I'll Be Missing You, featuring Combs, Faith Evans and 112, which was dedicated to Wallace's memory. At the 1998 Grammy Awards, Life After Death and its first 2 singles received nominations in the rap category. The album award was won by Combs' No Way Out, and I'll Be Missing You won the award in the category of Best Rap Performance by a Duo or Group, in which M.O. Money M.O. Problems was nominated. Wallace had founded a hip-hop supergroup called The Commission, which consisted of Jay-Z, Lil Cease, Combs, Charlie Baltimore and himself. The Commission was mentioned by Wallace in the lyrics of What's Beef on Life After Death and Victory from No Way Out, but never completed an album. a song on duets. The final chapter, titled What You Want, The Commission, featuring Jay-Z, was based on the group. In December 1999, Bad Boy released Born Again. The album consisted of previously unreleased material mixed with guest appearances including many artists Wallace had never collaborated with in his lifetime. It gained some positive reviews, but received criticism for its unlikely pairings, the source describing it as compiling some of the most awkward collaborations of his career. Nevertheless, the album sold 3 million copies. Wallace appeared on Michael Jackson's 2001 album, Invincible. Over the course of time, his vocals were heard on hit songs such as Foolish by Ashanti and Reales Niggas in 2002, and the song Runnin', Dying to Live, with Shaka the following year. In 2005, duets, the final chapter continued the pattern started on Born Again, criticized for the lack of significant vocals by Wallace on some of its songs. Its lead single Nasty Girl became Wallace's first UK #1 single. Combs and Valletta Wallace have stated the album will be the last release primarily featuring new material. Legacy. Considered one of the best artists in rap music, Wallace was described by AllMusic as the savior of East Coast hip-hop. The source named Wallace the greatest rapper of all time in 2001. In 2003, when XXL magazine asked several hip-hop artists to list their 5 favorite MCs, Wallace's name appeared on more rappers' lists than anyone else. In 2006, MTV ranked him at number 3 on their list of the greatest MCs of all time, calling him possibly the most skillful ever on the mic. Editors of About.com ranked him number 5 on their list of the top 50 MCs of our time, 1987 to 2007. In 2012, the source ranked him number 3 on their list of the top 50 rap lyricists of all time. Since his death, Wallace's lyrics have been sampled and quoted by a variety of hip-hop, R&B and pop artists including Jay-Z, 50 Cent, Alicia Keys, Fat Joe, Nelly, Ja Rule, Eminem, Lil Wayne, Game Clinton Sparks, Michael Jackson and Usher. On August 28, 2005, at the 2005 MTV Video Music Awards, Sean Combs, then using the rap alias P. Diddy, and Snoop Dogg paid tribute to Wallace. An orchestra played, while the vocals from Juicy and Warning played on the arena speakers. In September 2005, VH1 held its second annual Hip Hop Honors, with a tribute to Wallace headlining the show. Wallace had begun to promote a clothing line called Brooklyn Mint, which was to produce plus-sized clothing, but fell dormant after he died. In 2004, his managers, Mark Pitts and Wayne Barrow, launched the clothing line, with help from Jay-Z, selling t-shirts with images of Wallace on them. A portion of the proceeds go to the Christopher Wallace Foundation, and to Jay-Z's Sean Carter Scholarship Foundation. In 2005, Valletta Wallace hired branding and licensing agency Wicked Cow Entertainment to guide the estate's licensing efforts. Wallace branded products on the market include action figures, blankets, and cell phone content. The Christopher Wallace Memorial Foundation holds an annual Black Tie Dinner, B.I.G. night out to raise funds for children's school equipment and supplies and to honor the memory of the late rapper. For this particular event, because it is a children's schools charity, B.I.G. is also said to stand for books instead of guns. The Notorious B.I.G''s children C.J. and Diana are set to star in an animated series called House of Wallace. Style. Wallace mostly rapped on his songs in a deep tone, described by Rolling Stone as a thick, jaunty grumble, which went deeper on life after death. He was often accompanied on songs with ad-libs from scene Puffy Combs. On the source's Unsigned Hype, his style was described as cool, nasal, and filtered, to bless his own material. AllMusic described Wallace as having a talent for piling multiple rhymes on top of one another in quick succession. Time magazine wrote Wallace rapped with an ability to make multisyllabic rhymes sound smooth, while Crims describes Wallace's rhythmic style as effusive. Before starting a verse, Wallace sometimes used onomatopoeic vocables to warm up, for example at the beginning of Hypnotize and Big Poppa and What after certain rhymes in songs such as My Downfall. Latif of Latix notes that Wallace had intense and complex flows. Fredro Stereovonics says Biggie was a master of the flow, and Bishop Lamont states that Wallace mastered all the hemispheres of the music. Notorious B.I.G. also often used the single-line rhyme scheme to add variety and interest to his flow. Big Daddy Kane suggests that Wallace didn't need a large vocabulary to impress listeners, he just put his words together a slick way, and it worked real good for him. Wallace was known to compose lyrics in his head, rather than write them down on paper, in a similar way to Jay-Z. Wallace would occasionally vary from his usual style. On Play a Hater from his second album, he sang in a slow falsetto. On his collaboration with Bone Thugs and Harmony, Notorious Thugs, he modified his style to match the rapid rhyme flow of the group. Themes and lyrical content. Wallace's lyrical topics and themes included Mafioso tales, niggas bleed his drug-dealing past, 10 crack commandments, materialistic bragging, hypnotize, as well as humor, just playing, dreams, and romance, me and my bitch. Rolling Stone named Wallace in 2004 as one of the few young male songwriters in any pop style write incredible love songs. Gorilla Black, in the book How to Rap, describes how Wallace was able to both glorify the upper echelon and make you feel his struggle. According to Touré of the New York Times in 1994, Wallace's lyrics mixed autobiographical details about crime and violence with emotional honesty. Marriott of the New York Times, in 1997, believed his lyrics were not strictly autobiographical, and wrote he had a knack for exaggeration that increased sales. Wallace described his debut as a big pie, with each slice indicating a different point in my life involving bitches and niggas, from the beginning to the end. Ready to Die is described by Rolling Stone as a contrast of bleak street visions, and being full of high-spirited fun, bringing the pleasure principle back to hip-hop. AllMusic wrote of a sense of doom in some of his songs, and the New York Times notes some being laced with paranoia. Wallace described himself as feeling broke and depressed when he made his debut. The final song on the album, Suicidal Thoughts, featured Wallace contemplating suicide, and concluded with him committing the act. On Life After Death, Wallace's lyrics went deeper. Crims explains how upbeat dance-oriented tracks, which featured less heavily on his debut, alternate with reality rap songs on the record, and suggests that he was going pimp through some of the lyrical topics of the former. XXL magazine wrote that Wallace revamped his image through the portrayal of himself between the albums, going from mid-level hustler on his debut to drug lord. AllMusic wrote that the success of Ready to Die is mostly due to Wallace's skill as a storyteller. In 1994, Rolling Stone described Wallace's ability in this technique as painting a sonic picture, so vibrant that you're transported right to the scene. On Life After Death, Wallace notably demonstrated this skill on I Got a Story to Tell, creating a story as a rap for the first half of the song, and then retelling the same story for his boys in conversation form. Biopic. Notorious is a 2009 biographical film about Wallace and his life, that starred rapper Jamal Gravy Woolard as Wallace. The film was directed by George Tillman Jr. and distributed by Fox Searchlight Pictures. Producers included Sean Diddy Combs, Wallace's former managers Wayne Barrow and Mark Pitts, as well as the latter Wallace. On January 16, 2009, the movie's debut at the Grand 18 Theater in Greensboro, North Carolina was postponed after a man was shot in the parking lot before the show. The film grossed over $44 million worldwide. In early October 2007, open casting calls for the role of Wallace began. Actors, rappers and unknowns all tried out. Beanie Sigel auditioned for the role, but was not picked. Sean Kingston claimed that he would play the role of Wallace, but producers denied it. Eventually it was announced that rapper Jamal Gravy Woolard was chosen to play Wallace, while Wallace's son, Christopher Wallace Jr. was cast to play Wallace as a child. Other cast members include Angela Bassett as the letter Wallace, Derek Luke as Sean Combs, and Tanique Smith as Faith Evans, Naturi Norton formerly of 3LW as Lil Kim, and Anthony Mackie as Tupac Shakur. Bad Boy released a soundtrack album to the film on January 13, 2009. The album contains hit singles of B.I.G. such as Hypnotize, Juicy, and Warning, as well as rarities. Awards won 4 nominations. 11. Wallace received 2 nominations from the Billboard Music Awards in 1995, including Rap Artist of the Year and Rap Single of the Year. The song M.O. Money M.O. Problems received several nominations in 1998, including Best Rap Performance by a Duo or Group at the Grammy Awards, Best Rap Video at the MTV Video Music Awards, and Best R&B/Soul Album and Best R&B/Soul or Rap Music Video at the Soul Train Music Awards. Overall, Wallace has received 4 awards from 11 nominations. 1 award and 6 nominations were received posthumously. Billboard Music Awards. The Billboard Music Awards is sponsored by Billboard magazine, and held annually in December. Year Recipient Award Result 1995 The Notorious B.I.G. Rap Artist of the Year won One More Chance Rap Single of the Year 1. Grammy Awards. The Grammy Awards are awarded annually by the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences of the United States. Year Recipient Award Result 1996 Big Poppa Best Rap Solo Performance nominated 1998 Hypnotized Best Rap Solo Performance nominated M.O. Money M.O. Problems with Mason Puff Daddy Best Rap Performance by a Duo or Group nominated Life After Death Best Rap Album nominated. MTV Video Music Awards. The MTV Video Music Awards is an annual awards ceremony established in 1984 by MTV. Year Recipient Award Result 1997 Hypnotized Best Rap Video won 1998 M.O. Money M.O. Problems with Mason Puff Daddy Best Rap Video nominated. Soul Train Music Awards. The Soul Train Music Awards is an annual awards show that honors black musicians and entertainers. Year Recipient Award Result 1998 Life After Death Best R&B/Soul Album, Male 1 M.O. Money M.O. Problems with Mason Puff Daddy, Best R&B/Soul Album nominated Best R&B/Soul or Rap Music Video nominated. The Source Awards. The Source Awards were awarded by hip-hop magazine The Source. Year Recipient Award Result 1995 The Notorious B.I.G. New Artist of the Year, Solo 1 Ready to Die Album of the Year 1 The Notorious B.I.G. Lyricist of the Year 1 The Notorious B.I.G. Live Performer of the Year 1 The Notorious B.I.G. Live Performer of the Year 1 The Notorious B.I.G. Live Performer of the Year 1 The Notorious B.I.G. Live Performer of the Year 1 The Notorious B.I.G.